Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers live on the Voice of College Football Network. Tucker Harlan and Jordan Binkley with you on this Monday evening. Hope you all are doing well. If you're new here, please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. We are live every Monday at this time, 8 Eastern Time, 7 Central for those of you in Central Time in Tennessee, like the two of us. But we're here. We're talking about all the happenings in Tennessee football every single week, and we're happy to have you guys along for the ride with us. Hope you all had a great weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed watching football games on Saturday, and then, of course, Sunday always comes around, and I have to watch the Titans, and they got stonewalled by Jordan's Indianapolis Colts for the second time this year. But I don't care enough right now about how bad that team is to just continually rant about them. But there's some other fun happenings too. You know, Tennessee's playing exhibition basketball. That even though they lost the game, I still think it's fun to get some eyes on a team that's going to hopefully be really fun to watch this season. So enjoyed doing that at the very least. And of course, again, we want to congratulate Josh Elander on getting the job with the Tennessee baseball program. He was deserving of at least being mentioned in coaching searches in years past, or well, really the last couple seasons, and then this year in particular, he was mentioned in some searches. I don't know why anybody didn't take the chance on him, but I'm glad Tennessee did. So, Jordan, how was your weekend?
Pretty good. I was excited to see the Tennessee-Kentucky matchup. Some things that frustrated me in the game, but overall, it's always nice getting a win over a rival, especially one like Kentucky will extend that lead even further in the series. As we've joked about several times, like it will take a lifetime or two for Kentucky to get back even with Tennessee. Outside of college football, didn't really do too much. Just been prepping for the music festival I'm going to next week. Been a lot of stress with that, but we're pushing through it, and we're going to leave on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. So that should be a lot of fun and gives me something to look forward to.
Yeah, sounds like quite the time up there at a music festival. But it's a good segue into what we are going to talk about here to open the show, which is that Tennessee-Kentucky game. Per usual, we're not going to spend a ton of time on it just because we already did an entire post-game show on this. But Tennessee does get the win in Lexington 56-34 over the Kentucky Wildcats. And this is now 3 wins in a row for Tennessee in Lexington under Josh Heupel. I guess technically 4 wins in a row if you include the Pruitt one. But Tennessee now has more wins in Kroger Field, more SEC wins in Kroger Field, dating back to November 2021 than Kentucky. Tennessee's got 3 of them. Kentucky only has 2, which are Mississippi State in 2022 and then Florida in 2023. And it continues to look worse for them up there by the day. But Jordan, your takeaways from this game on Saturday?
Well, the offense was humming. I mean, the passing attack was full-fledged there. I mean, Joey Aguilar had his best day in a volunteer uniform, nearly going for 400 yards, like I think 4 yards shy of it. All the wide receivers sharing the wealth, like 3 receivers going for 100 yards. You don't see that every day. So that was an impressive performance by them. But of course, like once again, every single week, please make me stop saying it, Tennessee. Please stop with the defense because I'm tired of mentioning it. But yeah, the defense looked horrendous, unfortunately. Really not much to say about it because we talk about it every single week. But I mean, getting torched by a former 3-star quarterback that started the year as a backup. And not only that, he was a freshman and throwing for 300 yards. That is absolutely something that Tennessee should never allow to happen. But we saw it before UAB. I mean, Jalen Kitna torched Tennessee, statistically speaking. You just don't like seeing it from the defense. But overall, I mean, like you win, you'll be happy. And Tennessee gets to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. There's some good and there's some bad in this game for sure. And like you mentioned, the offense humming along, I think, is something good to see after what was pretty much the dud of the year to this point at Alabama, which is disappointing that it happened in such a big game like that. But you have 3 receivers go for over 100 yards in this game. So good development there by Tennessee. Can you do that against everybody? Probably not, just because you're going to see better defenses than what Kentucky was fielding out there. I did have a couple things that I wanted to mention. And I mentioned some of this stuff in the post-game show, but you avoided a situational crisis in this game. You were up 28-21 with 1:37 to go, trying to run the 2-minute drill at the end of the half, and you executed it perfectly this time. They did run a few seconds off there toward midfield, but again, they were in control of it the entire time because Kentucky, for whatever reason, tried to man up against Tennessee's wide receivers, and it failed miserably. As we saw all night, I think the KSR guys on Twitter were just like, the go long play is just automatic 50 yards for Tennessee every single time they want to do it. So obviously that's fun for Tennessee. You do that, and then you capitalize on a defensive turnover without housing it in one fell swoop. I think that is, that's a little bit more of a nitpick than anything. But you look at some of these games, like Arkansas, for example, you had 2 fumble recoveries in that game where you did nothing. You did score 1 touchdown after one, but that was because you got the ball within the 20-yard line. I'd hope you could do something with that. So you capitalized off the turnover in this game, so that's at least nice for Tennessee. You'd like to see more of that, I think, is the big thing, because you had one in the Georgia game and you only came away with 3, which was disappointing. And then the other one, I think, was an arm punt too, pretty much by their backup quarterback to end the half. So good to see Tennessee capitalize off of turnovers. Run game was not that functional in this game really until the end of it. 108 yards is actually a season low for this team on the ground, which is kind of a surprise. Even Georgia, where they were not that good, I mean, they still went for 125, which is more than what they did in this game. But you did get the running backs involved at the goal line, which was at least one positive development on the ground. You had 4 total rush touchdowns from your running backs in this game. So it's not like it was all terrible. It's just oddly not as productive as usual. And then lastly, you've got the defense, which has been a hot topic around this football team all season. And it is so frustrating to watch because this team, it is capable of making big defensive plays throughout the game. You can get turnovers. They've scored 5 touchdowns this year on the defensive end. I know they did something like that in 2023, although most of those were in that UConn game, so I don't know if you count that as much. But no, Tennessee's done that against most of the Power 4 teams it's faced this year. They've compiled those against most of the Power 4 teams, I should say, because the only one that wasn't was the Beasley scoop and score against, who was it, UAB?
Yeah, I think so.
So that would be the only time that they have scored a defensive touchdown against a team that was not a Power 4 team previously this season. But you look at the other stuff, and there are a multitude of problems with the defense. We'll just start there. And I think fundamentals has to be coaching to some degree. I think that's where this defensive staff comes into the picture a little bit, because I don't know if it's the scheme as much. I know it's, caused some problems this year for Tennessee playing so far back from the football. And then, of course, Tim Banks is not taping up Jermon McCoy in the locker room, so you can't blame him for that. But if you're taking poor angles, you're not wrapping up and just not doing the fundamental stuff, that's not a good look for your coaching staff. And then, of course, your players out there on the field. I don't care if you're, a 3-star linebacker or whatever in the game. You should not be tackling that poorly at this level. It just shouldn't be happening. So those are my main takeaways from the game, Jordan.
Yeah, and with defense too, the tackling has been continuing to be an issue throughout the entire season, but also the defensive line didn't really put up the effort that they've been doing all season. I mean, Tennessee's been close to the top. I think they're as high as number 2 at one point in sacks per game, but only walk away with 1 this game. I mean, 8 TFLs, that's pretty good, but I wanted to see a little bit more pass rush going out there because that's like Tennessee's only strong suit on defense right now. I mean, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So you got to use that to your advantage and try to cause fits. And maybe if they were able to create more pressure, then Kentucky wouldn't be throwing for 330 yards in the game. But I mean, also too, like we mentioned over and over again, Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson, their injuries have been tough for this team. Also, Boo Carter, like whatever he's been going through mentally or whatever, it's been difficult. I mean, because he's there, he's out there playing, but he's not what everyone was hoping that he would be at all. So I mean, had to rely heavily on people like Ty Redmond, who's a freshman, and like it's not good when you're playing in the SEC and you have to start these young of guys out there at defensive back, and even a Colton Hood too. Even though that he's played well, I mean, this is his first year as a starter. I mean, he's always been a backup before, so there's really not too much experience out there outside the safeties, and and some of those safeties not that great.
Yeah,
So,
and one thing too, now that you mentioned Colton Hood, he was injured during the second half warmups. Do want to keep our eyes on that this week for the availability report. If he is out, that is a major blow to the secondary. If he's out for any period of time, so we'll keep an eye on that when it comes out in about 48 hours. But not a good development for Tennessee there either. And you're right about the pass rush as well. Like, if that is one of your defense's redeeming qualities, it needs to be in action in big games on the road. I know you blew out Kentucky, but still, man, you got to get after the quarterback on third down. It's just frustrating to say the least. All right, well, that's, I think, all we're going to talk about with that Kentucky game is just business as usual. Kentucky's not had a winning record over Tennessee in football since before the Great Depression, so not really anything new for us here on Tennessee football with Kentucky. So moving over to the performances by teams on Tennessee's schedule this week. Just a quick look around the schedule here. UAB had the week off, as did Georgia and Florida, so only 9 teams in action this week. The only team to win in the non-conference was actually ETSU against Wofford, 14-10. I believe New Mexico State lost to Missouri State on a Tuesday night in overtime, and Missouri State is awful. Actually, coached by Bobby Petrino's son-in-law.
oh.
So, fun fact there about Missouri State, even though Tennessee does not play them this year. Syracuse took one on the chin from Georgia Tech, 41-16. Georgia Tech for sure looking like the best team in the ACC this year. They won't have Haynes King next season, but could be a game on Tennessee's schedule that is more difficult than we previously thought. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it because, still a year separating between now and then. Looking at the SEC games now, and I felt like the theme across the league this week was just bad teams at home on the verge of upsets unraveling left and right. You saw it all week this week in the SEC. And in the case of 2 teams on Tennessee's schedule, that's what happened. One team on Tennessee's schedule was fortunate to get out of one of those scenarios. Mississippi State losing 45-38 at home to Texas. Texas was down 38-21 with like 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of this game. Arch threw a touchdown pass, a pretty long one. I think to Ryan Wingo. I'm forgetting who it was exactly. And then they kicked a field goal at one point, and then Mississippi State punted the ball away late, and they ran it back for a touchdown to tie it at 38. And then Texas scored the go-ahead touchdown in overtime right in Brandon Walker's face in the back of the end zone. And Mississippi State comes up short again. It's like, at what point is this team going to finally break through and get an SEC win? Like last year is what it is. Like they were in such a bad hole. You just knew they weren't going to be able to do it. This year, it's like they feel like they should be good enough to get an SEC win, yet they just haven't. And they're running out of opportunities to do it. You got to get some just to try and get into a bowl game because Arkansas is still on the horizon. But outside of that, you got Georgia and Ole Miss left at home. You got to go to Mizzou. It's not easy for them down the road. Although the Prbula injury might open the door for them. I don't know.
Yeah, unless that rushing attack goes crazy, because Hardy's been going off this season.
Also true. But yeah, overall tough one to swallow again for Mississippi State. That's 2 overtime home losses to UTs wearing orange this season for Mississippi State. So unfortunate blow for them. Arkansas going down at home 33-24 to lowly Auburn. How on earth did they manage to lose this game? Well, I'll tell you. They were up 21-10 at halftime, I believe. Maybe it was 21-13. I know they were up 21-13 at some point in the fourth quarter. And here's the thing. Auburn kicked, I believe, 4 field goals in the second half. I forget how many exactly it was. I know they changed quarterbacks after Jackson Arnold threw a pick 6 to end the first half, put Ashton Daniels in. He didn't exactly light the world on fire. But within either just outside of or within the final quarter, Arkansas turned the ball over 4 times, one of which resulted in a touchdown. Taylon Green threw 3 interceptions, and I believe it was Omega Blake who fumbled on one other occasion. But yeah, they scored a bunch of field goals in the second half and ended up getting a 33-24 win against Arkansas. I don't know. Maybe Bobby Petrino isn't coaching his way into the Arkansas job.
Well, maybe he just caught fire quick because, like teams weren't expecting his game plans. And then now, like, you know a little bit more to expect from Arkansas. But it's disappointing seeing these teams like Arkansas, Mississippi State, like fall out because Tennessee's going to need everything they can to try to make it to the playoffs right now. And you would hope that these teams would be winning to help Tennessee's odds. But, that was not the case this week at all. So hopefully some pieces can fall together so Tennessee can hope for a college football playoff appearance. But yeah, Arkansas is Auburn too, man. I can't believe Auburn of all teams.
Yeah, and Auburn's defense is good. We'll give them credit where credit's due. They also ran the ball pretty well. I think it was 230 was the final output for Auburn in this game on the ground, which is pretty impressive stuff. But Arkansas, man, it's not even about how bad the defense played. The offense just cratered there in the final quarter of that game, and instead of running away with it, they just fell apart. So tough loss for them, man. They need to win out now in order to get to a bowl game, which is tough. And oddly enough, Auburn is only 2 wins away from a bowl, and they have Kentucky and Mercer left on their schedule. So who knows? Maybe they can get in with that kind of a schedule left. Alabama holding on for a 29-22 win over South Carolina. This one was kind of disappointing watching it live. South Carolina went up 22-14. Bama comes back, ties it with a touchdown and 2-point conversion at 22. South Carolina has the ball with, I believe, over a minute to go in this game and has a chance to drive down and win the game. And Lenora Sellers fumbles it. I think it was more of just a good play by the Bama defender than anything. But they allowed Jeremy Bernard to score a touchdown on that final possession, and Alabama gets out of there with the win. A good win for Alabama. That's a team that has been prone to lose games as double-digit favorites away from Tuscaloosa under Kalen DeBoer, but they don't let them down in this scenario. So good for the Tide, but not looking good at South Carolina right now. I'll tell you that much.
No, not looking good for South Carolina at all. But I'm looking at Alabama's schedule right now, the rest of the games they have. I mean, with Brian Kelly being gone, I mean, you would assume that LSU game is going to be a win. And then you got Oklahoma, you got Eastern Illinois, you got Auburn. I mean, outside of Oklahoma, I don't know if Alabama loses a game. I mean, I know Auburn plays them good a lot of the time. I mean, we've seen some Auburn teams that weren't as good as Alabama win. But I don't know. I mean, I don't really see a loss on Alabama's schedule moving forward. So, I mean, probably going to see them in the SEC championship. Probably going to see them in the college football playoffs this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like Alabama's just on a nice inside track there to the college football playoff. I'll tell you who else is on a nice inside track to the college football playoff, and that is Ole Miss. They take down Oklahoma, who Tennessee plays this week, 34-26 on the road. That I would say is probably Ole Miss's second toughest game of the season, only behind Georgia, who they lost to a couple weeks ago. Ole Miss very much learning from their mistakes after getting into a little bit of a precarious situation in the second half at Georgia. They did it again against Oklahoma, and honestly, some of it was self-inflicted because why on earth would you go for it on 4th and 1 at your own 25-yard line with a lead in the second half? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's exactly what Lane Kiffin did. And he did it on a very wet, very gross day out there in Norman. And Oklahoma briefly had a lead in the second half, 26-25, but Ole Miss scores the final 9 points of the game to get it done. And that sets up what is pretty much an elimination game if we're talking about college football playoff chances for Tennessee and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, it very much is an elimination game. I mean, I highly doubt. I mean, with how even the SEC has been, or college football as a whole, honestly, I mean, there's not really been too many teams that have been sticking out. I mean, a lot of parity this season, but yeah, I mean, like Tennessee, they're for sure going to have to win out, and same with Oklahoma too. And let me see what Oklahoma's schedule's looking like here.
You have Tennessee and Alabama on the road, which are tough ones that are remaining.
And then
the home games should be winnable with LSU and Mizzou, just assuming Prbula is not 100% healthy the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, so Oklahoma, I mean, that Alabama game is going to be fun to watch for sure, especially because of what happened last season between those two teams too. Because I remember I was sitting in a bar, some of my friends forgot the game was even going on, look up at the TV and see Alabama losing like 28 to something on there, and that was a surprising loss last season. So you would imagine that Alabama is going to try to get their revenge this year. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough road for Oklahoma for sure, but I mean, it's not an easy route for Tennessee either. I mean, Florida is going to be a sneaky team coming up here in a couple of weeks too. I mean, even though without a coach, I mean, I'm almost worried about Florida more without Billy Napier than I am with him.
The thing with Florida, man, is they are, whenever they are not good, they're still not bad. I think is the best way to put it with Florida. They're not truly a bad football team like their record indicates this year to this point. So that's going to be a tough one for Tennessee. They, of course, had the week off ahead of the cocktail party, which is this weekend. And then lastly on Tennessee's schedule for this week, Vanderbilt holding on and getting it done 17-10 against Missouri. As we've alluded to a few times, Bo Prbula goes down in this game with a pretty nasty ankle sprain that is going to keep him out indefinitely. There is at least a little bit of a chance that he comes back later on in the season, but not looking good right now for him. They nearly came back and took this game to overtime with backup quarterback Matt Zollers through a pass to Kevin Coleman that was somehow ruled a completion. I didn't think it was complete in real time. But they were a yard short of the goal line for potentially tying the game. Pretty ugly game for most of its existence. I want to say it was like 3-3 at the very least, pretty deep into the fourth quarter. So not a pretty game by any means, but Vandy gets it done. They win with College Game Day in town, and just further emphasizes the point that this is going to be maybe the toughest game left on Tennessee's schedule just because of the way Vandy's playing. Mizzou, by the way, the only team to go on the road in the SEC this past week and lose. 6-1 week for road teams in the SEC.
Yeah, and with Vanderbilt looking at their schedule on here too, I mean, they pretty much control their destiny outside of the Tennessee game. I mean, because you got to assume Auburn's a win, Kentucky's a win. I mean, even Texas. I mean,
we'll see.
I don't think Texas is that great of a team, to be honest. I mean, I know they're still ranked on here, but I don't know. I mean, they've been struggling. They almost lost to Kentucky. I mean, they lost to Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt right now, I mean, it looks like Tennessee could keep them out of it, but I don't know. Does a 10-2 Vanderbilt team still get into the playoffs? Maybe so. I mean, honestly, it would be good optics wise. I mean, people would be excited to see Vanderbilt go to the playoffs. But it would be equally exciting to see Tennessee ruin their playoff odds. And because, I mean, who knows if Vanderbilt can get there again? I mean, Clark Lee's been doing great this season, don't get me wrong, and he's done a lot for Vanderbilt's program, but he could be just catching lightning in a bottle this year. This could be his one opportunity to make a move, and then after that, could be over with. And I wouldn't be surprised, too, because I think a lot of it comes from the leadership of Pavia, the way that he's able to fuel the team in the locker room and everything like that. I feel like even if he doesn't have his best game, I feel like his teammates want to win the game for him in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'm getting real excited for that Vanderbilt game. And I'm so glad that Tennessee has to play them at home and not away, even though, like whenever Tennessee plays against Vanderbilt,
They would outpopulate the fans. Yes.
Yeah. It's still a home game, but you rather have 100,000 Tennessee fans as opposed to like 30,000 Tennessee fans.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, but it is going to be tough, and I don't think you're going to be able to lure Clark Lee out of Nashville just because of all the ties there. Obviously, an NBA graduate, two-time graduate of Vanderbilt as well. But you alluded to it earlier. Can you keep Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, and any of the positive momentum that you had from those guys in Nashville long term? I don't know if that's really the case, if we're being completely honest. And I think one thing we know about Vanderbilt is that the good times do not last there in football. We saw it with James Franklin. Obviously, that's a bit of a different story because he was trying to ascend the coaching ladder. I don't know if Clark Lee is necessarily trying to do that, as there are several vacancies in college football. Man, this is a terrible year to have to be looking for a coach, but it's the truth. It's not something that I think he would leave very easily just because the place is near and dear to his heart. But that's all we have on Tennessee's schedule. I do have a quick bonus round for you guys, though. First and foremost, Indiana getting it done at home against UCLA 56-6. Congratulations to UCLA for beating up on fraudulent Big Ten teams for 3 weeks and making everyone think that Jerry Neuheisel was some play-calling legend. Here's the thing. They might truly be better as the year goes on just because of that. And I don't know what it was that made that team better without Deshaun Foster being there. But, yeah, maybe that is the case. They got the nice interim bump there. But they were abysmal on Saturday. Nico had a pick six out the gate that he threw in that game in Bloomington. And again, Indiana's legit. That's a big part of this as well. UCLA does go to Ohio State here in a couple weeks. So not going to be a fun return trip to the shoe for Nico, I would not say. And then one more in our bonus round this week, Texas A&M 49, LSU 25. Texas A&M has probably the best inside track of anybody in the SEC to the college football playoff right now. I think that's pretty firm because you got South Carolina at home, assuming, again, that we keep mentioning it, but the Prbula injury changes the complexion of the game at Missouri. Suddenly you're feeling a little more opportunistic about that. And then you get Texas on the road, which, Texas is not going to be an easy place to play, and it's a rivalry. But I don't think they go out there and lose that game just because I don't believe in Texas much right now. But that's all I want to talk about with Texas A&M in regard to this game, because we need to get to the really important thing, which is Brian Kelly losing his job at LSU. Who would have thought that he would not outlast Hugh Freeze or Mark Stoops this year in the SEC coaching ranks in terms of the hot seats? It felt like his seat was getting warmer at the end of last year just because they had that month-long skid where they lost to Texas A&M, Alabama, and Florida. But, man, they fell apart so quickly this year. And I think if you just look at the win-loss record, you just assume, like, why on earth would they fire him? That makes no sense. But you look at some of the things that have come out in the last 24 hours about the goings-on within that program, and just some of the stuff that you see from him on the sidelines game in and game out that's just televised to the masses. It's clear that culture was a problem at LSU, not results.
Well, I never thought that he was a good fit for LSU to begin with. I mean, he didn't really seem to have too many ties from the South, and it doesn't get much deeper in the South than LSU. I mean, and then like on top of that, like I felt like he was overrated as a coach when he was at Notre Dame. Like, yes, he brought them to a national championship and he had some good seasons there as their head coach. But I mean, I feel like it doesn't take too much to have success with Notre Dame. I mean, most of their history, they've picked their own schedule, everything like that. They got a leg up with uh the media and everything because I'm pretty sure they have some kind of deal with NBC or something like
They do.
that. Yeah, and then like I mean, I don't think it takes too much to be above average coach at Notre Dame. So I mean, I've never been a believer in Brian Kelly, and I saw this on Twitter today, and I found it pretty interesting. So Nick Saban's record when he was at LSU was 39-13. Les Miles was 42-11. Ed Orgeron was 40-9. Brian Kelly 34-14. All three of those coaches that I mentioned before Brian Kelly, each one of them won an SEC title and a national championship. So Brian Kelly had the worst record, no SEC title, no national championship. But that also goes to show too that LSU was knocking it out of the park there with hires there for a minute. I mean, the fact that they had three head coaches win national championships in the 21st century, pretty impressive. I know you might say something about Ed Orgeron. I know I
And
don't
Les
think
Miles for that matter.
Yes.
Look, here's the thing. We can agree that Nick Saban is a good coach, but here's the thing. You don't have to be an exceptional coach to win 8 or 9 games a year at that program. Let's just call that like it is. That job, it's if you are at least a somewhat decent coach, you should be winning year in and year out at LSU. Brian Kelly proved that. I mean, he's a decent football coach, and he has the least to show for out of all of them, which is the crazy thing. And again, I think it all comes down to fit, right? Like he did not fit the culture down there, and you have again all the stuff flying around on the internet too of the clips of him just complaining to his assistants about what happened. Apparently his relationships with his assistants are absolutely terrible, from what we know. And again, the scissor lift thing is what it is, which by the way, today's the 15-year anniversary of that from when it happened at Notre Dame. But there was bad stuff happening at Notre Dame too with the assistants, and the players as well. Like, I mean, he's putting guys in chokeholds there at Notre Dame. And I always thought he was just kind of a strange dude
He had a weird personality, man. It didn't seem like legitimate. Always putting on a show is what it seemed like.
It's like, and we accuse Josh Heupel of being too kind to people at Tennessee, maybe not giving enough tough love to his coaches and his players. Brian Kelly is the antithesis of that. He legitimately hates them all. He did say he wanted to execute his entire team.
That was taken out of context, though.
It was taken out of context, but it's Brian Kelly. So I don't know if it was really taken out of context. So there's that whole piece to it. And there's one other thing I was going to mention as well about Brian Kelly. You had former players going after him just about what his what the culture problems within LSU. And the other thing too is like Jaden Daniels came through there at LSU and won a Heisman. And the best thing they got out of that was an SEC West title because Alabama happened to slip up to them and Tennessee that season. You're not going to remember Jaden Daniels' career at LSU the same way you will Joe Burrow's because he didn't win a national championship. He didn't win anything of significance. They didn't even go to a New Year's Six Bowl with him. They wasted a terrific talent because you couldn't field the defense. And then when you try to fix that stuff, all the other stuff gets broken, and then you blame those guys. I mean, they just kept firing people left and right. There's just no good relationship with any of these people. So I know we've ranted for a while about Brian Kelly, but that is one of at least a couple teams Tennessee will play next year that is going to have a new head coach. We know that much.
Yeah, and I want to say one more thing about LSU before we pivot. Like Les Miles, like he may have like end up doing bad at Kansas, and Ed Orgeron may have struck gold in the right situation, but like the one thing that gives LSU a leg up is they have great recruits coming out of Louisiana. They have a lot of money to fund and everything like that too. But another school that has more money, arguably, and much better recruits is Florida, and they still weren't able to replicate the same success that LSU's had in the 21st century. They were good with Urban Meyer, but outside of the Urban Meyer, not so much.
Yeah. So LSU is one of what is that number? Like 9 Power 4 openings right now, and
Yeah,
that
something
number,
crazy like
that
that.
number could expand as we go into the off season. So just crazy how this is all happening, and makes all of us Tennessee fans realize how lucky we are that Josh Heupel is around. I know Oklahoma fans may not be feeling the same way about Brent Venables, some of them, but they need to be thankful, as our guy Josh Mahler from the Oklahoma Voice of College Football channel can probably tell us about. He's been waiting patiently backstage. Let's go ahead and bring Josh in to the picture here. Josh, how are you doing, my friend?
Good. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, we got you.
Alrighty. Yeah, apologies. I know I had to set up in the hotel room and everything, but no, I'm doing okay. Despite how many Oklahoma fans may be doing after this past week, I'm doing all right. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man, we're happy to have you on, and happy to talk all things Tennessee and Oklahoma, because this is a game that we were talking about earlier, just with the result that Oklahoma had against Ole Miss this weekend. That is pretty much a college football playoff elimination game now. The stakes are raised in Neyland Stadium. It's a night game. It's everything you could want in this scenario. I hate using this because it sounds like something Butch Jones would say, but it very much feels like a regular season championship type environment, if you know what I mean. There's a lot on the line, just putting it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked about it last week for Oklahoma, that it felt I felt like Oklahoma needed that game against Ole Miss more than Ole Miss needed it, because of the brutal schedule that Oklahoma has now, having to go on the road in Knoxville. You get a bye week, and then, which is probably going to be much needed there. And then you go on the road to Tuscaloosa, finishing out with Mizzou and LSU at home, which now looks like, hey, you've got a couple there at the end that you really should win. But it was definitely a must win, and for this exact reason, because now these next 2 games especially are must wins for Oklahoma in order to keep themselves locked into the playoffs. And I know a lot of people preseason, myself included, were saying that a 9-3 Oklahoma could make it in because of that schedule. I don't think that's the case now, the way that things have shaken up now, with losing one at home and then also losing one against Texas on neutral field, which isn't really looking like that good of a loss either, because Texas is kind of struggling to be able to beat some of their opponents here that they should be beating. So it was a must win last week, and you're right. I think it is kind of that elimination at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy you mentioned that. And Texas is right there with both Tennessee and Oklahoma record wise, which is the crazy thing. And it's funny because Texas doesn't have a ton of great wins, but they have that win against Oklahoma. So technically, it's like they got a leg up on both Oklahoma and Tennessee. It feels like Tennessee, I'm just going to be completely honest, like, of the Power 4 games that they've played so far, they've not won against any team that is of significance right now. Like Syracuse has fallen off a cliff after the Steve Angeli injury. Arkansas and Mississippi State are both terrible right now. Kentucky's the worst team in the league. So you've yet to really capture a big win yet this season. It's an opportunity for Tennessee to do that. Oklahoma has the win over Michigan, which is of more significance than what Tennessee has done so far. But again, just goes back to the point that this is a big opportunity for both of these teams. And I guess we should look at this history, if you would call it that, between these two, which there's not much of it. I know they played some Orange Bowls in the 1900s. I believe it was 68 and 37, and they split those Orange Bowls. I forget who won each year, in all honesty. Although I'm sure, if I had to guess, Tennessee probably won the one in 37 just because Neyland was around back then. I'd have to pull that up to try and look at it, though. But that's all the history you have before the home and home in 2014 and 15. And to be completely honest, like the matchups that we've seen since then, I don't feel like both teams have been at their best in those years, because Oklahoma did have some good teams, or one team specifically that was really good in those years, with the Baker Mayfield team coming into Neyland and getting the win. But, Tennessee had Butch Jones in those years. They were not beating teams that they probably should have beaten that were good teams in both 2014 and 15 at the beginning of the season. I know Oklahoma struggled a little bit in 2014 as well too, with the because that was the year they fired Josh Heupel or just let go of Josh Heupel as a co-offensive coordinator with Jay Norvell. And then you look at last year, I would say last season was very out of characteristic for Oklahoma. That's a team that goes 6-6. That's the worst team that Oklahoma's had in our lifetimes, basically. I'd say, the defense was a redeeming quality, but that's the worst Oklahoma offense I've ever seen, and certainly not the case this year. So my hope for this game is that both of these teams will be at their bests.
Yeah, and it does seem that way. I feel like, last year, obviously, I think a lot of Oklahoma fans were able to kind of shake that off because of all the injuries that they had. And then, of course, I now, with hindsight, go back to last season and say Oklahoma was as bad as they were because of Brent Venables' hire an offensive coordinator. And I think he would take that upon himself at this point now, too. And, and understanding that Seth Luttrell was never a good hire. And if you look back at last season, it just felt like the decisions, whether you're putting Jackson Arnold in the game or taking him out, it just felt like you never gave any of your guys their best opportunity out there on the field with the play calls. And then later on in the season, when you finally have your backs up against the wall where you have nothing going for you, then they start to shine against Alabama. And what do they do with that? They kind of hold on to that win too long, and then they end up losing to Missouri and then losing to LSU there in the end of the season. But yeah, it definitely wasn't Oklahoma's best last year. But I think Tennessee got the best Oklahoma, the best version of Oklahoma leading into that game, because it was high hopes. It was hopes that you can hang in there with an SEC opponent. It was, I believe, the first SEC game for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so, that was big for Oklahoma coming into that game. And then, of course, just a couple of turnovers from Jackson Arnold was basically the start to the fall, the start to the end for Jackson Arnold there to kind of close out the season.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I was going to say, so you were talking about Oklahoma's offense a little bit, and I was doing a little bit of research before the game, and I saw that Oklahoma is the most they've scored against a Power 4 opponent is 26 points, and they're currently number 77 in total offense. So how confident are you in Oklahoma's offense coming up this Saturday?
I'm about as confident as you can be with these circumstances. This offense is definitely head and shoulders better than they were last year. That's not saying much, but they are. It's just what you saw against Texas and then also Ole Miss, kind of combining those two together. Texas felt like Oklahoma wasn't awake, and it also felt like John Mateer was just off of his game, and he hasn't been on back onto his game since that injury. And it's obvious now, again, hindsight's 2020, that he was rushed back to play. But even outside of that, it doesn't even feel like the thumb is really what's bothering him. It's more his mental state. And that was the same thing in that Ole Miss game, where it just felt like he wasn't seeing the field clearly. He wasn't seeing the open guy the way that you saw against Auburn, the way that you saw against Michigan, and the way that he was performing early on in the season. And the reason why he got all that Heisman hype was because he was seeing open receivers before they were open, because he was able to deliver the deep ball, because he was able to find a guy across the middle. He hasn't used Jaron Kanik at all, who was like one of the leading receivers in all of college football, not just tight ends, for a long time. And then now he's been completely quiet in the last 3 or 4 games. And so, I'm not extremely confident in this offense, but what you saw last week was if the play calling can come in and be a little bit more consistent and recognizing where you're having strengths, I think that Oklahoma can do just fine, because what they've been struggling this year on is trying to run the ball. And when they find hope in running the ball, last week, for example, you have Xavier Robinson bust off for a 65-yard touchdown. Outside of that 65-yard touchdown in the third quarter, he was averaging 5.5 yards per carry. You go into the fourth quarter, and I think he only had a couple of touches, maybe 3 touches total in the fourth quarter, again, averaging 5.5 yards per carry still through the fourth quarter. And that you didn't keep on running the ball with Xavier Robinson. That was kind of dumbfounding to a lot of Oklahoma fans. The pass game wasn't working. It was obvious that John Mateer wasn't finding the open guy, and they still refuse to run the ball, especially in a circumstance where you could really use to run the ball and chew up some clock and get down there and score. So I think if Oklahoma kind of gets a few things under control, first being lead with the run game and get that find that run game and that rhythm in the run game early, then I have a little bit more confidence in them, because when they find that rhythm early, it opens up a lot more. And then John Mateer doesn't have to put the team on his shoulders, which has not been good for him lately. Because he started off the first half just fine against Ole Miss. And then, of course, whenever they started to rely on him a little bit more than they should have, that's whenever he started to crumble. So I feel confident in this offense. I don't feel as confident in maybe the play calling and maybe the schemes that they're going to throw out there.
Well, I have some good news for you, Josh. The Tennessee defense has not been exceptional this year against the run by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't terrible against Alabama, surprisingly enough, but I have a feeling both the running backs and Isaiah Satania will have a very nice day against what is a little bit of a battered defense just due to some injuries. And also the fact, too, somebody tweeted it earlier today. I think it was one of those SEC Network guys. Well, first and foremost, that Oklahoma hasn't scored more than 27 in a Power 4 game this year, but also Tennessee has not allowed less than 31 to an SEC team just yet. So that's kind of remarkable that Tennessee has not been able to do that after having its defense hyped up for the majority of the offseason. But again, some of that is injuries, but part of it is just basic fundamentals.
And you mentioned that with the defense, and it does give Oklahoma fans some hope with, hey, we're going against a rushing defense that we might be able to exploit. But the last 2 weeks, you went against the 75th ranked rushing defense in the nation against South Carolina, and you found some success there. I don't think they really used it to their advantage as much as they could have, but they did find success there. And then the very following week, you're going against the 98th ranked rushing defense in Ole Miss, and you didn't even try to use it in the first half. I think there was 9 total runs, and I think only 6 or 7 of those were actually designed running back run plays. And so you found no rhythm, I think, in the teens. I forget how many yards there were in the first half, rushing yards, but it was, you have hope there that you're able to, this is a defense that you can run against, but do Oklahoma fans have the confidence in this offensive staff to call those run plays and to get it going early? That's kind of what we're more concerned about.
Hey, Josh, one generic question I have for you just about Oklahoma fans. What is the perception of Josh Heupel there?
I was hoping you were going to ask that.
Because here's the thing. It's a very complicated relationship from what I understand. Like, I've heard that Oklahoma fans do like him, but there's bad blood there just because of what happened with the Stoops family. And then you got Tennessee fans saying, you guys shouldn't be mean to Josh Heupel, because if you're mean, he'll run off for the Oklahoma job when it inevitably comes open. And it's like, do you know why he is not at Oklahoma right now? Do you know what family is the reason why he's not at Oklahoma? What is the general perception of Josh Heupel?
I think that the general perception is that, hey, they let him go, and it seemed like the right time. And I think there was a lot of foreshadowing of what they were going to be able to obtain in Lincoln Riley. And so, I think that was part of what went into maybe the decision. I don't know exactly all the details the way that some do on exactly what went down, but I know that there's a lot of it that has been built up in kind of wise tales of it actually blew up into this big thing, because even Bob Stoops is pretty cordial with Josh Heupel now to this day. And so I think Oklahoma fans still like Josh Heupel and they appreciate him. He's the last quarterback to win a national championship for the Oklahoma Sooners. So you can't be too upset with them or to get too down on him. And it just as the Tennessee as a whole, I feel like there's a weird, like, I don't know. I feel like most teams have not welcomed Oklahoma into the SEC. Most teams hate that Oklahoma came along, that they were just drug along with Texas because Texas is the bigger brand, even though Oklahoma won way more Big 12 championships than Texas and really carried the Big 12 to where they were. That's kind of the perception for Oklahoma, was that everyone was like, we got to bring in Oklahoma, and they're a bunch of annoying fans, and they think they're good when they're not, when Oklahoma really is a historic program. But then there was one team that seemed really welcoming to Oklahoma fans, really welcoming to myself. Whenever I started covering Oklahoma, I had a bunch of Tennessee fans like constantly in my comments and constantly cheering Oklahoma on and constantly, jumping in, even if I wasn't talking about Tennessee. And I was like, wow, this is kind of weird. And so I started seeing that all over social media, where for some reason Oklahoma and Tennessee fans have like a weird alliance where it's like, hey, handshake after the game, and let's go grab a beer afterwards. But we'll be mean to each other, maybe 15 minutes before the game all the way through, but afterwards we're good. We're back to being friends. And same thing with Josh Heupel. I feel like the same relationship there goes to Tennessee.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, Josh, because like I think, at least from our perspective, most of the people that feel like there's an oddball of the teams that have been lumped into the SEC, it's Mizzou. It's not Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why you feel like that, but no, I'm glad that you find the Tennessee fans nice. We're not for everybody. I feel like Oklahoma fans are actually very nice, funnily enough, that you put it that way. Like there's the thing, because the Texas A&M fans are all very nice. We can agree on that. But they do their weird traditions that are odd. Yeah, this whole thing. And it's like the strangely nice kind of people that they have down there at Texas A&M. I don't get that vibe with Oklahoma. I think they are genuinely nice people.
Well, yeah, I'll say some. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say real quick that it is kind of that I don't know. It is Missouri is the outcast. They always were the outcast of the Big 12. I think that's why they got rid of them in the Big 12. But yeah, and then just for Oklahoma coming over, what I heard from SEC fans all around was Tennessee fans are the worst. Tennessee fans are the most annoying. And I felt like Tennessee fans were the most welcoming. And I can see where Tennessee fans are brutal to everybody else, but for some reason, it just hasn't been the case for Oklahoma.
You're listening to Bama and Florida fans, Josh.
That's
the problem.
Yeah. But I was going to say, I feel like maybe just a theory why Tennessee fans accepted Oklahoma more is because even though Tennessee doesn't, I think Tennessee's only played them maybe twice ever, but there's a little bit of mutual hatred there with Texas, considering they call themselves UT and all this, and they wear a lot of pride on their shoulders, even though they have less national championships. The University of Tennessee was founded in 1794, I think, and the state of Texas was founded in 1825. And not only that, the state of Texas wouldn't even be a state without the help of Tennessee, and yet they still want to claim superiority over the Volunteers. No, I think most Tennessee fans hate Texas just because they share so much with Tennessee. So I think, and we are always going to support the rivals of our rivals.
They're embarrassed to acknowledge our existence, Jordan.
Well, and I always just found it weird. I was just talking about this the other day because it's like, I get, random fans from other teams that will just randomly hop on and, they'll jump in your comments on social media, or they'll jump in the live chat on our podcast and jump in there just to roast Oklahoma for losing. And it's just so weird. Like last week, I kind of get it for Ole Miss fans jumping in real quick. And I get it for rivals, like we get Texas fans jumping in constantly and just kind of stirring up the chat and everything, which I kind of get that. But every once in a while, we'll get like a random Bama fan or a random Florida fan or, a random Georgia fan. And it's like teams that Oklahoma's not even playing. Or maybe doesn't have them on the schedule until later on in the year or something. And it's always just really weird to me where I've never really had too much from Tennessee fans. I feel like Tennessee fans have always been, pretty cordial. They'll jump in the week of the game and, kind of shout their, and I expect that, I encourage that. But, it's like, it's just a much different thing. And it probably is the whole UT thing. Of course, Texas hates that Oklahoma throws the horns down so much that they begged the Big 12 to make it a penalty. And so now we finally come over to the SEC. We're allowed to do it as much as we want.
Yeah, none of that softball crap here. And you, by the way, you named the three worst fan bases in the SEC just now. So glad that you hate all of them like we do. So it is a weird alliance that we've got going on here. But now that we've gone totally off the rails, I do want to look at a couple more things in the matchup. The offensive line was one of Oklahoma's biggest problems last season. I know Tennessee had a very big day against it last season. And a lot of that had to do with injury, but also just not a good mixture of people from the transfer portal. If you can't nail that offensive line chemistry, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And you see many places learn that early on in the season. So with that said, this group is undoubtedly better. Would you say that is closer to a strength or a weakness for this team in 2025?
Definitely a weakness. I think in pass blocking, this is what's really weird to me. And I still haven't been able to talk to an offensive line guru. I need to reach out to somebody and talk to them. But in my brain, I obviously, look at me, I'm way too little to be an offensive lineman. I was always,
we were offensive linemen too.
We were both linemen.
Really? Well,
yeah.
Maybe you guys can answer this for me.
5'8", Josh. We're not big guys. We got shuffled out of football because we're looking up at the guys that we're trying to block against or get past to try and sack the quarterback. So I don't think we're the greatest teachers.
I was mainly always a wide receiver or DB. That was my main bread and butter whenever I played. But to me, pass blocking seems much more complicated because of you have a lot more going on. You have to know where your quarterback is, or if whoever's got the ball passing the ball, you've got to know where your quarterback is, and then you also have to try to maintain a pocket and not move, but you still have to move around some, and that seems very complicated to me. Run blocking to me, just you run forward and hit anybody in your path and make sure to open up a hole and don't give up. And so to me, that seems like the easier of the two. Just go be aggressive. But for Oklahoma, it's been quite the opposite. The run blocking has been quite atrocious for most of the season. It's had its glimmers. It's had it's starting to improve. You're seeing that a lot here in the last couple of games. But the pass blocking has been pretty. I wouldn't say great or anything, but it's been pretty good. And there really hasn't been a whole lot to complain about with the pass blocking, where the run blocking has been an issue for Oklahoma. So the offensive line is definitely a weakness. It's not a good offensive line. It's very banged up again, which has Oklahoma fans concerned and kind of questioning, why is it banged up all the time? What's going on here? But now you've got two true freshmen on the outsides on both tackles stepping up, and Ryan Foje on the right side, if I'm getting this right in my brain. And then you've got Michael Fasusi, the 5-star, starting over on the left side. So you've got those two guys stepping up, and I would assume they probably both get the start again this week. It really kind of depends on how that injury report looks tomorrow. I guess that'd be tomorrow or Wednesday. Yeah, tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday? Yeah. So whenever you get that injury report, you'll start to see. And then, of course, Derek Simmons was a guy that Oklahoma was really excited to get. He's been banged up for quite a bit of the season. And then your starting center has been out as well for most of the season. And so, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So it's definitely a weakness, again, because of much of what you had last year with just injuries.
Yeah, so moving over to the defensive end now, this is the side of the ball that Oklahoma has hung its hat on since joining the SEC, which I know Oklahoma does have a tradition with defenses, but it's just kind of funny from the era of football that we've grown up in. We're just accustomed to seeing Oklahoma with bad defenses and terrific offenses. It's kind of a little bit of a role reversal, I guess you could say now, but you look up front, man, this team is nasty once again. You got R. Mason Thomas back this year. He caused a lot of problems for teams across the SEC last season. Taylor Wine is a guy that's really stepped up for this team. By the way, a Tennessee native, Nolensville, Tennessee. My dad was actually his high school principal, so big shout out there to Taylor Wine. It's a small world that we live in. This group can potentially get after the quarterback. And Tennessee has actually done a very good job at protecting Joey Aguilar this season, despite having a lot of new pieces. How do you think that they'll be able to match up on the road? I know communication is improved with a quiet crowd for a defense, so that's obviously a bit of an advantage. But what do you think this matchup plays like for this Oklahoma defensive front going up against what has been a pretty solid Tennessee offensive line this year?
Yeah, I think they'll do all right. I mean, the defensive line is the biggest, the most confident, group. If you talk to any fan and you were just to say, give me one group on offense or defense that you have the most confidence in, it would be that defensive line. I mean, you mentioned R. Mason Thomas and Taylor Wine stepping up huge, being a big part of that defensive line as well. But you also got Marvin Mims Jr., Marvin Jones Jr. It got old receivers stuck in my head, I guess.
Yeah, it happens.
You got Marvin Jones Jr., former 5-star that transferred in from Florida State. And then you've got David Stone, who was going to transfer out and decided over the weekend not to transfer out, coming back. And he's been a huge player this week or this season. And it's been tremendous to see the improvement that he's made from last year, and really stepping up big. Jaden Jackson, who was great last year, Grayson Halton. I mean, you've got a defensive line that you can put all kinds of faith in, and it's a bunch of guys that would start on any team in the nation, and they get plenty of rotation on top of that, which is also what's so dangerous for other offensive lines, is just because you are always having a fresh guy in front of you, it seems like. And Brent Venables is really good about trying to switch things up and make sure to get rotations in as much as possible, especially on that defensive line where he knows he's got the depth. And so I feel really confident in them. Last week, I think Lane Kiffin did a really good job of kind of keeping them quiet, because first, Trinidad Chambliss is just a nightmare for any defensive line to try to bring down. But then he had a lot of pre-snap movement, a lot of kind of trickery type formations. You had the one where you had both Trinidad Chambliss and Austin Simmons both come in at the same time. You had that a couple of times. So you had a lot of different looks that Lane Kiffin just kept the defense guessing. And there was a lot of communication issues trying to make sure that the right guy was picking up the man in motion, and things like that. So I think that last week was kind of a fluke. I mean, I guess you call it a fluke. I think Oklahoma still had like 13 tackles for a loss, but they only had 1 sack. So, if they don't get to the quarterback, they are going to get into the backfield and make sure that they get plenty of tackles for a loss.
What's interesting how these two teams match up, because it seems like both of them are good at the exact opposite. Like Tennessee's got one of the best offenses in the country. Oklahoma's got one of the best defenses in the country. It seems like the only similarity that they really share is having a good pass rush. I mean, outside of that, I mean, it's a very interesting matchup because, like we mentioned earlier, both teams are competing for a playoff hope here, and both teams are completely different. So it's kind of hard to see where the game's going to go.
Yeah, and it was very similar last week for Oklahoma too. So that's kind of what's scary for Oklahoma fans, is that the defense got off to a slow start. They kicked it into gear in the second half, and then it just you can't. Everyone knows, especially SEC fans, that you can't get off to a slow start that way, and especially the way that if you've got a team that can find a way to score if they need it, like Ole Miss or like what Tennessee can do in Josh Heupel's system, then that you've got to get off to a fast start. So I do think that really for either team, it's who gets out of that first quarter, that first half, feeling like they've got the momentum. I think that really carries in to the second half a lot. Even if you're only winning by 3, but you feel like you've got the majority of momentum on your side, I think that's going to say a lot for either team, and especially Tennessee since it's at home.
I do want to ask about the secondary, just one more thing related to the matchup before we get to the keys. But Tennessee is posting 3 of the best receivers in the SEC. You could argue the country right now. Chris Brazel was in Biletnikoff discussions earlier on in the season, had a couple of games against Arkansas and Alabama that have kind of quieted that conversation. But Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley have had terrific seasons for Tennessee to this point. And I think it's proof that pretty much every quarterback failure in the Josh Heupel system is user error from the quarterback. It has nothing to do with Josh Heupel. See Nico and Joe for those shortcomings. But how do you think this Oklahoma defense can fare against what has been a very productive group to start this season?
I think they'll be able to slow them down. It's hard to say that anybody can stop down that wide receiver room, because It is electric. And Joey Aguilar, talk about like the player, like the dark horse player of the year that just came out of nowhere. I was even talking to some Tennessee fans earlier on before the season even started, and they were like, yeah, I don't know. We're really hopeful for this guy because we're hearing all these reports that he's going to be good, but what are we basing this off of? And all of a sudden he comes out here and he's lighting it up. And it helps when you've got the receivers that Tennessee has. Oklahoma's been pretty solid, even in the pass coverage. They've been one of the better pass defenses in the nation. They do have a true freshman in Cortland Guillory, who, if you were just to look at the Auburn tape, you would think he's not very good because Cam Coleman was kind of cooking him up on several plays, but that's Cam Coleman. And since then, he's really stepped up. Last week, go back and watch that guy's tape and what he was doing last week. He had a couple of pass breakups, I believe. He was on his guy like glue nonstop. He got involved even on the run game and making some big stops. Cortland Guillory is a freshman that's really stepped up. And then most fans probably remember Eli Bowen in his freshman season last year for Oklahoma, and the way that he stepped up. He's finally back, and it looks like he's 100% again, which is really good for Oklahoma because he's been another one of those guys that has really stepped up big whenever you go against some of these tougher wide receivers here since he's been back in for Oklahoma. And then, you go back into the safety room. I think Robert Spears-Jennings, he got some flack last week, but again, it was kind of a lot of that pre-snap motion that threw a lot of guys off. I think the linebackers in the secondary were especially thrown off by a lot of those movements and not covering the right guy at times. But Robert Spears-Jennings likes to deliver a big hit. You get Boganowski, who likes to come in there, Michael Boganowski, who likes to come in there and fly downhill, especially in the run game, and come down there and make a big hit. I feel pretty good about Oklahoma's secondary, but like you mentioned, with Tennessee's wide receiver room, I don't feel confident enough to say they're going to stop them or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain Oklahoma has the best defense Tennessee will see all season.
100%.
Georgia's been weird this year. It's like they can be great on defense when they want to be, but that's only like 25% of the game. Like they were not good against Tennessee. So at the beginning of the year, we all thought, oh man, maybe this Tennessee offense really is that good. And then you go watch the Ole Miss game, the Alabama game, and I forget who else they played on the road. I guess they were fine against Auburn, but like, again, the defense is just not what we're accustomed to. But I really do think Oklahoma will be Tennessee's toughest test, just in terms of a defense that you have to go against this season. But I want to jump into some potential keys to victory for both sides now. Josh, what would you say are some keys to a victory for Oklahoma in Neyland Stadium?
I think I mentioned it a little bit ago. I think getting the run game going early, and not just getting the run game going, because we saw what happened to Oklahoma last week when they just finally got it going in the third quarter. You've got to get it going early. You've got to give Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson consistent carries, enough to get them some sort of momentum. And like we talked about a moment ago as well, is that this is a defense that you should feel confident enough to put those guys out there and to do something. And so get the run game going early, because we see Josh Heupel do this so well, setting up that run game to where the defenses have to come up and play up close because they have to respect that run game. And then all of a sudden he lights one up over top. Oklahoma's got some speedy receivers. They've got receivers that can get downfield. Isaiah Satania, the ICC is very familiar with him and what he's capable of. Giovanni Gibson is a fast, tall guy. Deion Burks is quick and speedy. He can get down there. They've got some guys that they can break out into that deep game if they need it. And even Jaron Kandick coming across the middle as those sure hands and that tight end. Get the run game going early, because it opens that kind of stuff up later on when you really need it.
Yeah, I think those are all very important points with the run game in particular. And I think, because that's an area that Oklahoma has struggled in. And unfortunately, I say this from a Tennessee side, but an area where they could be successful in this time around, just because the Vols have not been great against the run in this season. And I think Mateer could potentially get out of his negative headspace, I guess, that you described, and have a good day against what is not a good-looking Tennessee secondary at the moment because of injuries, but also It is still injury related, but Colton Hood injuring himself in second half warmups against Kentucky, that's basically your corner number 3 that would be down. So, and Tennessee, by the way, I checked this on 247 earlier today. There are, I think, a total of 3 4-star guys that Josh Heupel has recruited to Tennessee. 2 of them are in the 2024 class, one is in, 2 are in the 24 class, one's in the 25. One of them is at Vanderbilt now, and then the other 2, one is playing safety, and he was recruited as a corner, and the other one's a freshman. So overall, Tennessee not very strong in the secondary. It's by far the worst they've recruited any position here on the defensive end, just because the linebackers are beginning to get better, and then you obviously trust whatever Rodney Garner can do on the defensive end. But for Tennessee, you've got to find a way to keep up the productivity from last week on just throwing the ball. I think you've got to establish the run better than you did last week at Kentucky. You've not been able to truly establish the run for the last 3 weeks now. I guess Arkansas was probably your last really good output on the ground, because you did not come out firing on all cylinders against Alabama and Kentucky. Even though you were able to rattle off some big runs in that game, you just didn't do it early enough, I didn't feel like. And then just find a way to stay in the game defensively. I guess that's terrible analysis, but it's the truth. This team just has not done small things well, like elementary level stuff in football. Angles, tackling, all the fundamental stuff that you talk about on defense. It's just not there with this team. And then another one that I will throw in, the pass rush has to get home, because it's disappeared in 2 road games in a row now. It got after Taylor Green, who, despite being very elusive, they did sack him 5 times, which is somewhat of an important development. But those would have to be my keys, is that you have to establish the run game, and then you also got to get after the quarterback too, because Mateer has been in trouble at times here recently for Oklahoma, just in the backfield. And some of that is just going against better defensive fronts, like Auburn and South Carolina are very good defenses that he's had to go against. And Tennessee, that's the one good thing that they've been able to do this year, outside of get turnovers every now and again. So, Jordan, any keys from you that I didn't mention?
Yeah, well, I was going to say with the pass rush too. That's the only thing Tennessee really has going on defense. So I feel like they need to be careful, but try to send it early, get that crowd involved, and try to get it as loud as possible. Because if we start sending some blitzes out there, the crowd's going to erupt, and then you can get them into the game. But on offensive side, I think that Oklahoma is going to anticipate that we're going to throw the ball a lot. So I feel like catch Oklahoma slipping, since they're so good at sacking the quarterback, since they're so good at the pass rush. Give some draws to Deshaun Bishop or Star Thomas to catch them off guard. Throw more screens, even though I've been a little anti-screen with Josh Heupel's offense. I feel like this would be the game to use it. Then you open up the pass. Once they start playing the ball up, the corners start moving up. That's when you hit Brazel deep. That's when you hit Mike Matthews or any one of the receivers. And then I think Tennessee can start putting up some points. But they're going to have to play a little bit of a chess game with Oklahoma if they're going to want to win.
Well, and I think for Tennessee too, just being patient, understanding that Oklahoma is really good against the screens, but that's a good thing to do. You get them up there and you get them confident and thinking that they can stop that screen, and all of a sudden you got Braswell running back behind you. And what do you do now? And so I think just being patient, and it's okay that it doesn't work the first 5 times. Go back to it again, just to keep them honest, and then you go over the top, like you said too. I think that's really crucial for Josh Heupel in this offense.
All right. Last order of business. Do we have any score predictions?
I haven't even begun to think of a score prediction yet, because I'm still trying to recoup after, what the defense did last week, allowing 34 points. It was the first time. So Oklahoma has only allowed 23 total points in the first half. The entire season before Ole Miss, they allowed 22 to Ole Miss. And so that was really rough to see, but I think they get back on track and get off to a faster start again this week. Tennessee, being at Tennessee, and because of some of the offensive struggles that I've seen from Oklahoma right now, I'm picking Tennessee to win this right now. I'll probably convince myself otherwise once we get down further on in the week. I feel like it can and probably will be a close game. I'll probably go Tennessee 28-24 right now.
Yeah, I was really nervous about this game for the past couple weeks, but I got a little bit of newfound confidence as of late. I don't want to put any crazy predictions out there because my Kentucky one last week was a little wild.
You were not far on the total points scored by Tennessee, though.
The total points was right. I didn't think Tennessee's defense was going to allow as much as they did. But with that being said, since I'm on the topic of Tennessee's defense and how poorly they've been playing, I would assume that Oklahoma is going to score more points against Tennessee than they have against the other Power 4 opponents. So, and Tennessee, I mean, they hang around about 50 points a game when they're at their best, but I don't think they're going to get that on Oklahoma's defense. But I think Tennessee will score more than you think. So with that being said, I think Tennessee wins 38-31.
Yeah, I definitely like a higher scoring game just because I am confident in what Tennessee can do offensively. Even though Oklahoma's defense has looked good for the majority of the season, we saw it play a good offense last week at home, and it did not pass the test. I got to be completely honest. I think Tennessee has a little bit more potency than that offense at times just because of what it can do on the ground. And then, again, I just think the wide receivers for Tennessee are so huge in this game. So I don't think the defense can do enough to really keep this a lower scoring game if Oklahoma is able to find some answers on the defensive end. So I think it's going to be offense heavy. I'm going to go Tennessee 42, Oklahoma 38. There's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, I feel like, if Tennessee is to win at home. And it's a night game. They're wearing the black uniforms. They've not the only loss with the in any form of dark mode was to Georgia in 2021, and that's the only team Josh Heupel has lost to at home other than Ole Miss and Pittsburgh in 2021. Like Josh Heupel at home, it's almost squeaky clean aside from those few games and the very beginning of his tenure, and then Georgia pretty much the rest of the way. And I just knowing what's at stake. The fact that this is the only night game being played in Neyland Stadium, too, which is criminal, by the way, that has happened this year with the league. Georgia, everybody just assumed with Nico leaving that Georgia game was going to be a wash. They stuck it in the 3:30 window instead of putting it at night on ABC, which is a crying shame because even game day realized that was going to be a nice game. But, yeah, here we are. I think this is Tennessee's chance to really show out, I feel like. So you have to take advantage of it.
I think if your guys' predictions are halfway right and Oklahoma's able to score 30 plus points, I feel good about Oklahoma. But I just before Ole Miss, I was saying that I would not put money on any team, any offense to score more than 20 points on Oklahoma, and it stayed true up to that point. Texas fans were in the comments, but their offense didn't put up 20 points. They had a special teams play that went down there for a touchdown. But that Ole Miss team did kind of shake me up a little bit in my confidence for this defense. So that's why I think Tennessee definitely gets over that 20 point mark for sure. But yeah, with your guys' predictions, if Oklahoma scores 30 points, I think they have a really good shot in this game.
Yeah, you would say that just about any team this year, I would feel like, except maybe Arkansas or potentially Tennessee. Because here's the thing: Tennessee has not given up less than 31 points in an SEC football game to this point. I guess technically they only gave up 28 to Alabama if you include a defensive touchdown and a safety. But it's still, the point stands. Tennessee has not been good this year defensively. So if Tennessee is going to win this game, it's going to have to be higher scoring. So that's just kind of what we've come to terms with, the reality of at this point in the season. But that's my prediction for the game. I feel like it has to be high scoring if Tennessee is going to win.
Yeah, I understand that for sure.
All right. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Tennessee Volunteers Live. Always good to hear from the opponent's perspective. He is our co-host, Josh Mahler, not co-host. He's the host, or one of our hosts, on the Oklahoma Voice of College Football affiliate. Of course, they got their other show, Sooner Smiths, which is the same time as ours every Monday night. Josh's show is later on in the week. You see his at there on Twitter, at Real Josh Mahler. And by the way, we should mention this as well. Josh is one of the proud founders of our Voice of College Football merch store. He deserves all the credit for that too, in addition to Mark Rogers. But, Josh was the real brains behind that operation. Josh, tell us what you guys have going on over there at Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football, where we can find your work.
Yeah, we've got shows. So live shows right now, Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and post-game Saturdays. So we're kicking out a bunch of content. And then, of course, daily content, trying to put out shorter clips and stuff like that for our listeners. But just covering all things Oklahoma football. It's been a lot of fun since joining the Voice of College Football. Of course, the merch shop, vocfb.com/shop. Yeah, that was definitely something that, Mark wanted to get going. And I said, hey, I've got a way. And so I put in a lot of tireless nights, making sure that I could get every team put up there. And we're still working on it too. We've got some things in the works. Hopefully we can get it all going too, so we can get more merch out there, even for Tennessee fans as well.
Yeah. We see the merch there too. And we're really appreciative of that stuff. We got someone that's bought something from there.
Uh-huh.
How about that? You should be proud of yourself, Josh. You should be really proud of what you've done, man. That's really, really, really good stuff for the network that you've done. And obviously we appreciate all the support that we can get. And that's a big part of it. It's a good way to help grow the channel. And again, you guys should subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We are live every Monday at 8 Eastern time. Again, we are going to be live sometime after the game this week, probably Sunday. I guess it'll just be me because Jordan will not be around for it, unfortunately. I will be traveling to the game, enjoying a night game in Neyland, as it will be my only chance to experience such a thing this year. Really looking forward to it. And we'll be live then. We're probably going to pivot next week's live show to Tuesday, as college basketball is tipping off. And again, Jordan is not quite going to be in town. So looking forward to that as well, talking about Oklahoma, and then going into the second bye week. So that should all be fun stuff here on the channel. And again, you guys should like, share, and subscribe to Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football too, if you want to get to know your enemy a little bit. We say that about all the other SEC channels on here. That again, hate watching is always fun. If you ever want to see us melt down, it's some of the most raw reaction that you can have after some of these post games, like the Alabama one. It's easy to do a show when you have all kinds of negative things to discuss, and it draws in all of your listeners because they want to hear what you have to say. They want to vent as well. It's fun.
Even our fans got a kick out of Chad this past week. He was very emphatic, very, very energetic about the Oklahoma loss.
Yeah, as he should be. Well, that is going to do it for us tonight here on Tennessee Volunteers Live. Again, we appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, hanging out with us, coming along for the ride. Again, special shout out to Josh Mahler of our Oklahoma channel for joining us this week. For Jordan Binkley, I am Tucker Harlan. We will talk to you guys later.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.